Welcome to this video on the Texas versus Johnson case from 1989. This landmark case, presented here as a mock trial by the World Affairs Council of Austin, centered on freedom of expression. The Texas versus Johnson case focused on flag desecration laws. Johnson burned the American flag in Texas. The Supreme Court eventually ruled that flag burning is protected speech, securing freedom of expression. The original trial took place in Houston, Texas, between 1984 and 1985. It was a state felony prosecution under the Texas Penal Code for the desecration of a venerated object. During the 1984 Republican National Convention, Johnson participated in a protest and burned a U.S. flag. He was charged with violating a Texas statute prohibiting the desecration of a venerated object in a way likely to seriously offend observers. This framed the conflict between political expression and state protection of patriotic symbols. The procedural journey saw Johnson convicted by a jury, sentenced to 1 year, and fined $2,000. While the Texas Court of Appeals affirmed this, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reversed the decision, leading the state of Texas to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1984, Gregory Johnson burned an American flag in protest of the Reagan administration, leading to his arrest and charges for desecration of a venerated object. This district court trial set the stage for the constitutional confrontation that reached the Supreme Court. The legal basis for charging Johnson was the Texas Penal Code, Section 42.09. This statute prohibits the desecration of a venerated object and targeted acts likely to seriously offend observers, resulting in a state felony prosecution. Let's explore Johnson's main arguments and the key witnesses that supported his defense. The defense argued that the Texas statute was unconstitutional because it prohibited expression simply due to its offensive nature. They asserted that flag burning is symbolic political speech protected by the First Amendment. Key witnesses included Johnson himself, who stated his motive was political speech, not hate. Professor Maya Klein, a First Amendment scholar, argued that expressive conduct conveying a political message is protected under prior Supreme Court cases. Samuel Ortiz, a civil rights activist, described the peaceful protest context of the flag burning. Judge Maria Alvarez, a retired expert, asserted that the government cannot prohibit speech merely because it is offensive. Free speech precedents confirm that the First Amendment protects symbolic political speech and expressive conduct. The government cannot prohibit speech just because society finds it offensive. These safeguards apply even to unpopular viewpoints. Gary Johnson, the defendant, testified that his motive for burning the flag was to express political speech, specifically to protest government policies. His intent was central to the entire case. Sam Ortiz, a civil rights activist, provided context by describing the series of peaceful protests. His testimony emphasized that Johnson's act was part of a broader discourse on government accountability. Professor Klein, a First Amendment scholar, connected Johnson's act to constitutional doctrine. She argued that expressive conduct conveying a political message is protected, citing Supreme Court precedents. Judge Alvarez, an expert on the First Amendment, asserted that the government cannot prohibit speech simply because it is offensive. She warned that doing so could lead to governmental censorship of expression. Johnson's testimony highlighted his motive, protesting government policies. He clarified that the act was political speech, not an expression of hate toward veterans. The defendant was the source of the action under scrutiny. Johnson's arguments emphasized that symbolic speech, when intended to convey a specific message, is protected by the First Amendment. Furthermore, the defense argued the Texas statute was content-based discrimination, which should be subject to strict scrutiny. The constitutional question was whether the Texas statute violated the First Amendment. Specifically, was flag burning protected as symbolic political speech? And can a state prohibit expression simply because it is offensive? Next, let's review the main arguments and witnesses presented by the state of Texas in prosecution of the case. The state of Texas argued they had a legitimate interest in preserving the flag as a symbol of national unity. They contended that the act was not speech but conduct that could provoke violence, justifying the statute. The prosecution argued that the state could regulate conduct that seriously offends community values. They maintained that the law targeted harmful effects and not political viewpoints. We will now cover the prosecution's witnesses and their supporting arguments. The state's theory centered on their interest in preserving the flag as a symbol of unity. They argued Johnson's act was conduct that could incite violence, and that the flag deserves protection due to its unique place in American civic life. Officer Luis Mendoza, the first responder, testified about the public disturbance and visible damage to the flag. Dr. Eleanor Sampson, a historian, established the flag's symbolic weight as a unifying national emblem, underscoring its venerated status. Linda Rogers, a veteran, offered emotional testimony about the flag representing a lifeline and sacrifice. Attorney General James Feldman articulated the state's interest in protecting public order and safeguarding community-binding symbols. Linda Rogers' veteran testimony highlighted the personal meaning of the flag, describing it as a lifeline and reminder of great sacrifice during her service in the U.S. Army. Officer Luis Mendoza, the first responder, documented the incident and Johnson's arrest. His testimony focused on the public reaction and the public disturbance caused by the flag burning. Dr. Eleanor Sampson, a historian, established the flag's symbolic weight. She spoke of it as a unifying national emblem, focusing on its venerated status nationwide. Attorney General Feldman articulated the state of Texas's policy interest in protecting public order. He argued that the desecration statute reflects a Texas tradition of safeguarding symbols that bind communities together. In summary, the state argued that protecting the flag maintains national unity, that flag burning is regulatable conduct, and that the statute safeguards a unique symbol of American civic life from seriously offending the community. The trial concluded with the arguments presented by both sides. Ultimately, the case reached the Supreme Court. But first, let's examine the initial court rulings. The district court jury found Johnson guilty, resulting in a 1-year prison sentence and a $2,000 fine. This was affirmed by the Texas Court of Appeals, but later reversed by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Though initially convicted and sentenced, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals ultimately reversed the judgment against Gregory Johnson, paving the way for the Supreme Court appeal. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in favor of Johnson, holding that flag burning is protected as expressive conduct or political speech. They found the Texas statute violated the First Amendment, confirming that the government cannot prohibit expression simply because it is offensive. The majority affirmed that flag burning constitutes expressive political speech. The ruling cemented the principle that the government cannot prohibit offensive expression. The dissent, led by Justice Rehnquist, argued that the flag is a unique national symbol deserving of protection. They viewed burning the flag as offensive conduct, not protected core political speech, and emphasized respect for tradition. The case established that flag burning is protected symbolic political speech. The First Amendment safeguards expression even if offensive, affirming limits on state power to regulate based on societal offense.